Hey, everybody, it's Honesty, and this is the Right Honesty Podcast.
Hey,
Adrian, you know
hey.
our custom. When we have a guest, we try to pretend like the people can't read the title of the episode. So let us see if we can prolong introducing our guest. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
You know what? I am so when my clients ask me how I'm doing, and I can't say, I don't want to like give too much details, what I tell them is I'm having a human experience.
Oh gosh, how
I like
how
that.
vague and ambiguous of you.
I know, stealing it, stealing
Yeah,
that
Objection.
one.
just because it's like I could get into it, but this is your time. So
I'm having a
so
human
I'm having a human
experience.
experience. Now let's get over to you. Exactly. That's where we are. So without further ado, we have a guest with us today, a person who is new to me, but I am already in love, and she is the reason that I will soon
Wow.
retire. I have one final project to release, and upon the release of that project, we will all turn our attention to her. Nia Forrester, how are you doing?
I am doing exceptionally well.
We are so glad to have you. Thank you for
Yes.
coming. I'm so excited to talk to you.
Thank you.
Yes.
I'm excited to talk to you guys. I think I might have told you on Facebook, but I was really impressed and riveted by your podcast and so appreciated that you turned your attention to some of my books. So happy to be here.
We're thrilled to have
Awesome.
you. Thrilled to have you. And as you saw from or heard from listening to our discussion of a la carte and then the Wanderer, you gave us such rich material
Hmm.
that we were just going on and on and on and couldn't we had to stop ourselves because we couldn't have a 5 hour podcast. But
Right.
for these books, Nia, these stories to have been um shorts, as you called them.
Which I mean, honestly.
Yes, we'll have to interrogate you on that. Just the richness the fullness that you packed into a la carte, which is longer when you put it together, right? In fairness, a la carte
Hmm.
totals over 400 pages, but the way that it was done, right? Each one could have been by themselves. And if that was
Thank
all that
you.
you gave, people, yes, we would have wanted more. I still want more, but I would not have walked away saying this feels unfinished because in
Hmm.
each chapter, you left them in a place where you could have walked away and not return. And then, of course, The Wanderer, just over 200 pages, which, look, we've seen authors call that a full length novel. You chose to call that a short. But man, oh man, you gave us hours worth of material to go into with that book, which challenges me in the best of ways, as I think I touched on in a couple of points when we discussed it. But
I listened to your podcast on that one twice, by the way.
I've listened to it a couple of times because it's been a therapy session for me as I continue to navigate my feelings about interracial relationships.
Right, right, yeah.
Yes, we got to work out our soul salvation.
Yes,
We could talk about that. That's
and
a.
and HP realized that she needed. What did you say, HP? You realized you needed more DEI training.
Yes. I got to go back through the PowerPoint.
Don't we all? Don't we all? So it's okay.
So where to begin? Oh my goodness, where to begin? I guess because look, clearly we chose two of your pieces. You have many more. So why don't we not so much go back to the beginning, Nia, but I guess I'd love to start with when did the stories go from just being in your head to you putting pen to paper, so to speak? And then what was the tipping point that made you begin publishing them?
Hmm. So when did they begin? Probably when I was a kid. I
Okay.
think that's true of maybe most people
Yeah.
who write. It's something you've all, you doodle, you journal, you whatever. But I think for me, I remember writing stories really, really young. Like I like to say I was like, like 7, something like that, really young. And then by the time I was in high school, I was writing stories in, those little black and white note exercise books, they call them where I grew up, the notebooks that
Yes.
you have for class. I would
Yes.
write stories in those books and I would like try to wrap it up maybe 3 or so pages shy of filling the notebook. And then I would leave those pages for reviews for my friends and people who pass the books around to read them. So in high school, I was definitely very, very prolific. I had like piles and piles of those notebooks. And then went on from there. And then, of course, in college, I wrote. The only time I haven't been writing in my entire life has been when I was in law school. Um, and that's because there was just too much damn reading to do.
I'm
And I
sure.
just didn't have, right, like, hundreds and hundreds of pages, like every couple of days. So um, didn't write through law school. I was miserable. Doesn't mean you shouldn't go to law school if you're thinking about it, though. Let me just put that caveat in, even if you're a writer. So I didn't write in law school. And then after that, I started writing again. I think right after law school, which was a long time ago, I wrote the beginnings of what would become my first self-published book, Commitment. Wrote that for a long time. Um, Changed a lot about the characters, their names, their situations, that kind of stuff. But that book, I think I published in 2012. And I think so there were two reasons that I decided to self-publish. One was it became that much easier to do. Like you could self-publish with a lot more ease than used to be the case. I think people used to have to use something like a vanity press, right? Where you would pay to have your books published and sell them out of the back of your car or try to sell them to bookstores. And like folks like Omar Tyree got started like that. Um, but self-publishing became much easier. So that was one thing. And then the other thing was there was an author that came out whose books became kind of like a cultural sensation. And I read all of them because I always want to be up on like pop culture, what people are reading, what they're talking about, what they're watching. So I read the books and I was like, and I dissected them in a way. And I was like, you know what? These books have a lot of emotional resonance, but the writing isn't that much better than the writers I know, right? It felt pretty achievable to put something out into the world. And so I said, you know what the hell? Why not do it, right? Because the truth is, when you write, tell yourself this all you want, but most of us don't write just for ourselves, right? We want someone to read it. Um, and so that was my thing. I was like, you know what? Might as well put it out there. The worst thing that could happen is that it's universally hated. And the best thing that could happen is it's universally loved. But more than likely, it's going to be somewhere in the middle, and that's good enough for me. So that is basically what, made me step out of the shadows of writing after work and put it in the public eye.
Wow. Can I go back for a second and then HP? I'll
Sure.
absolutely let you jump and ask your question. It sounds like you were doing like the original Amazon review in your composition books, if I understand you correctly, because you
Yeah,
would
like
write
the
the
analog
story.
version of that.
Oh my God, you would
Right.
write the story and then leave the last couple of pages so that people could give feedback about the story.
Listen, and to this day, I don't know how I did that because I essentially always left a couple of pages. So for some reason, I don't know, you have some innate sense of how long your story is or how short or how you can wrap it up. But I always managed to wrap it up just so I could leave like a few pages for reviews, which meant there were probably really bad stories with a really, imbalanced story arc or whatever all those things are. But yeah, I mean, I got satisfaction from having people read it, and that always like kind of pushes you forward to write more when you get reactions to your work. So
But to have the presence of mind to be thinking about that in high school is right. Most high school
yeah, I
writers
don't
are not,
even
I
know,
would
man.
imagine, not
I
not thinking
wasn't like
about that.
angsty though. I wasn't like an angsty writer, right? I wasn't like all emo and crying over my stories or anything like that. And if I was, I probably would not have shared it with anyone. So I wasn't, I don't think I was like agonizing over anything. I just was like, oh, this is fun to do. This is cool. I wonder what my friends think. And then, the highest pinnacle of success around that time for me was when people I didn't know in my high school would say, "Are you the girl that wrote the stories? Are
Wow.
you the girl who wrote the story about the this, the that, third?" and that was kind of fun. So yeah, I mean, I guess yeah, I don't know where that idea came from, but it's been around for a while, and I still read every review I get. So I guess it's ingrained in me now.
Okay. Now, do you still have those composition books?
No, I have some of them. I have one. I
Okay.
have one because one of my dearest and closest friends who I've known since I was like, I don't know, 10 or something. She kept one because she was reading it. But this is something every writer will recognize. There was this day, like late in my high school career, where I became convinced that all of it was just crap. It was crap. It was a waste of time. I don't know why I did it. It's so stupid. I'm so embarrassed I wrote all this stuff. And I made a little bonfire in my backyard and I burned them. I regretted it
Oh
immediately, I'll say that. But the only one that, they're probably like maybe three, but there's one that I know of that I have that, my one of my close childhood friends gave me like, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. And she said,
no.
"You'd
Hmm.
better give this back to me." And I didn't give it back to her, but
HP, that sounds like when you delete 50,000 words. Does
Oh,
that
with no
resonate? Yeah,
problem. With no
yeah.
problem. Yeah.
right, because that's a thing. I mean, you get to this point and you have to be really careful to like not get carried away with your emotions where you're like, I don't know why I do this. Nobody cares. It's stupid. It's no good.
Hmm.
And you want to like burn not just the file, but your entire computer, and you want to
Yes.
cry, and it can get really intense.
Yeah. My follow-up to that is that we've talked to a couple of authors on this show and off the show about reading reviews, and we've gotten a mixed bag. So some say
Hmm.
I read them all, like it's a part of me finding out how the audience is responding, and then others say I do not, unless I'm tagged, I will not encounter it. So how come you read your reviews, and how do you engage with them?
I never really engage, like respond
Oh,
or,
no, I mean, like, how do you take it as like I'm on the right track, or do you disagree with them like in your head? Like
uh-huh.
what's your process as you're
Yeah.
reading?
I mean, when I read them, generally speaking, and I think just a rule of life for me is like the best review and the worst review, those can go out the door, right? That's almost always bullshit. Excuse my language. Like the really, really glowing one, everything was perfect. Oh my God, I would change nothing. I read it and I appreciate the appreciation, but I don't actually believe it. I think it's dangerous to believe your best reviews, right? And then the worst ones, likewise. I mean, I tend to concentrate on those that are somewhere in the middle, the ones that have show that they engaged with the subject matter, the themes, the characters. They have reasons for the way that they feel. They're not just fangirling, and they're also not just slamming without reason. So some of you'll see on Amazon, I'm sure both of you have seen reviews on Amazon. This book was a waste of my money and time. I will never read another book by this author. I completely disregard that. This book is the best book I've ever read in my entire life. This author walks on water, blah, blah, blah. I disregard that also. The ones that I pay most attention to are the ones that say, and even if they're not positive, but they can give you information about why they felt the way they felt. So that review might sound something like, I really liked the character of Francine, but toward the end, when Francine did XYZ, I felt like that was not the character that the author had given us for 3/4 of the book. It felt like Francine made an unrealistic, had an unrealistic change of heart. Now that's something to pay attention to, right? Because they're commenting on like how convincingly you built the character and the story. It's not personal. You just have to, consider whether or not there's some substance in it. So I read them all. Um, I appreciate that whoever took time to review, but I tend to pay the most attention to, um, more analytical reviews, which is one of the reasons why I really loved your podcast. You didn't just say, oh, Rand was bae and so was bitchy. You had like a really analytical lens when you talked about the books. And I think that's like what authors crave, as you will know. honesty, right? Like you want that from your
Definitely. Yep.
readers. So something with substance, something that gives you, guidance a little bit about how you made people feel, how you did make them feel, what they believed, what they didn't believe.
So that's actually how AG and I met. She left a Goodreads
Mm,
review on my second project, and the very thing that I knew was wrong with it, she pointed it out. And so I
hmm.
messaged her and I was like, "Do you want to beta for me?"
She
That
started
is
Right.
how
stalking me,
I did.
stalking me.
I sent
You
her a message
lady.
on every platform. I was like, "You're gonna see this."
Right,
I'm
because
working on
that's
something else.
invaluable. That's
Yep.
invaluable, right? It's like someone who's speaking truth to, because the writer can feel like almighty, until very recently. You didn't see them, you didn't know them. They just made these stories and it just seemed like it came out of nowhere and they're magical or not. But to be able to give that feedback, to get that feedback as a writer and have it be genuine feedback, and
Hmm.
to that point about Adrian pointing out exactly what you knew was wrong with the book, those are the reviews that I pay the most attention to. I was like, damn it, I didn't get away with that, huh?
Uh-huh.
Because sometimes you phone it in. Because
Yes.
sometimes you phone it in. You're like tired, you want to stop writing the book. You're like, nobody's going to pay attention to that. That's not even a big deal. And they do,
Yep.
and those are the reviewers that you want. Those are the readers that you want, not just the ones that just love you because, or the ones that, let's face it, those are out there too, who just hate you because, right?
Hmm.
You don't know them, but they'll just be nasty, right?
Hmm.
So I don't really pay that much attention to those. I like the ones that, give me reasons behind their
Yeah.
stuff, whatever they
Yeah.
put on paper.
I feel like you're saying you enjoy seeing your work put on trial and the evidence where people
I do
present their
need the evidence, Adrian. The
yes,
evidence
you
has to
need
be
the
there.
evidence.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so
yeah,
it's
yeah.
like if
Definitely.
they, if they are praising it, then giving you concrete pieces of evidence. And if they were taking it to task, giving you evidence as to why they said, I didn't like this, or I disagree with this, or this felt out of
Right.
nowhere.
Yep.
Um, you know,
Right. And I think that should be like a guideline for reviewing, honestly. Like people should always give their opinions. I don't want to sound like I'm saying, nobody should care about your opinion unless you back it up. Sounds like something a lawyer would say. But yeah, I mean, I definitely think those are the ones that writers probably find most gratifying and useful. Like even the ones where, and I'm sure you've had a couple of these, honestly, where like, they might give you like a 2 or a 3-star review, but then you read why, and it's like, I really hated this character. She got on my last nerve.
Hmm.
I can't stand people like that. And I'm like, huh, but your emotions were engaged though, right?
Right.
Like they weren't flat. You didn't say
yes,
that. So
yes,
I'm good. But if
Right.
you want
yes.
to withhold a star or two because I made you hate someone who you and I both know ain't real,
Right.
I consider that a win,
For sure.
honestly. Yeah.
It's funny that you say that because we have done a couple of love Belvin books, and
Hmm.
one of the things that we have said consistently is, she writes characters. She is unabashed. She is proud of bringing broken, complicated, deeply flawed people to the table for a love story, and that
Hmm.
resonates with many readers
Hmm.
who feel like they see themselves or family members in these characters, right? Broken, been through some
Yep.
stuff, so on and so forth, but still deserving of love and a loving relationship. And there is no like neutrality. You like you
Hmm.
find yourself either loving a character or hating a character and wanting to just unalive them. We get in the habit of not saying kill because Facebook immediately shuts you down. But and
Right.
there's something to be said for, I think, to what you just said, when you can pull those kinds of emotions out of someone, whether where they landed in terms of liking or hating, the point is that they didn't read the book and say, I could have watched paint dry and it would have been the same use of my time as reading your book. Right?
Yep.
So
Exactly. Exactly.
so there you go. And the beat goes on.
For sure. Do
Right.
you want to pivot to work, or do you have like other like process related questions?
Well, Nia, is your process different for each book, or you have a very similar process in terms of how an idea comes to you and you sit with
Hmm.
it? Like, how does it go from being an idea that comes to your mind to what we ultimately get on the page?
I don't know. It isn't,
Fair.
it's an enduring mystery. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it could be, I don't know that I have a process per se. Sometimes characters come to me first. Like I can see a person, hear them, or what if them out of nothingness, right? Which would be like, what if a woman came home and her husband had packed up all his stuff and left and she had no idea why, right? It could start like that. Or it could start like, um, I was in DC. This was when I lived in DC. I was in DC and I was in a coffee shop, and the woman next to me in line to get her coffee said to someone I didn't see, Isabel, the last time I saw you was in Prague. And I just thought, what a pretentious little sentence. Isabel sounds pretentious. The
Yes.
last time I saw you was in Prague. I mean, it's like,
What were
you
you
know,
doing?
the whole thing sounded like, you know, the whole thing sounded like something you'd hear in a movie, and it would be about Upper East Side socialites
Yes.
in a charity
Yeah.
event or something, right? And it was in this coffee shop. And I remember rolling my eyes. And then I started thinking, what kind of person even says that? Like, and then, you know, that might lead to a story. And I will, or I'll just put the dialogue in, because it's so memorable, and that could, you could build a whole story around that. Who's that person? Who is she saying it to? What were they talking about? Were they being overheard, or is the main character saying that? If it's the main character, what kind of person is she? So you, it could come from that, or it could literally come from, I don't know, the news. So, and podcasts, right? So I have this really bad habit, and I say bad because it upsets my sleep and it makes me feel terrible about the world, of watching true crime shows and watching and listening to podcasts about true crime, often unsolved. And, you know, and often
Just
because you
hold on,
can't
hold
like,
on, hold on, hold on. You living on the
yeah,
edge. Unsolved? They got to be
yeah.
solved, Nia. What are you doing?
But see, but guess what, honesty, I get to solve it. So it's
Oh
like you're
no,
working out, you know how we all as writers, right? Writers like work out their own stuff in their
for
writing,
sure.
whether they know they're doing it or not. If they say
Yes.
they're not doing it,
They
I think
lying.
they're either lying or they are not self-aware enough to know that's what they're doing.
Right.
So for me, because I don't like an unsolved mystery, so I'll write it. I'll write, how could, what could have happened
Mm,
given the things that I know. And because you can't really, you know, you can't copyright stuff like that. You could wholesale lift a plot
right.
from a real event
Yeah.
and resolve it in any way that you want.
Law and Order's been doing it for 30 years.
Yes, yes,
There you go.
yes.
Exactly, right? And we all
Umpteen
recognize those
shows.
crimes.
I
Yep,
mean, it's the whole
yep,
rip straight from the headlines, but
Yes.
exactly. At least they told us that's what they're doing, I guess.
exactly.
But
But that's we can go back, but that's just amazing to me because as a person who my head is always at the conclusion. So
hmm,
to if I'm listening to a podcast and they in any way allude to the fact that it's unsolved, I will look it up
you'll
to
stop.
see if it was solved.
Oh,
And if
okay.
it was not solved, I got to come out.
Right. And then you're like, it disturbs you, right?
Right, my
Same. I don't
nerves are
know why is
bad.
this, but it's like a compulsion. I don't know why I listen to those. I mean, I just, I don't know why. And I watch like a lot of noir types of stuff, like really dark stuff. And then I just like obsess about it and feel depressed for 2 days. But things like that. So in answer to your question, Adrian, it could come from anywhere. And most recently that has been my like hunting ground for story ideas. And you know, there are probably only 10 plots in
Interesting.
the whole world anyway.
That's
So it
very
just all
true.
depends on your spin on it.
Yeah.
Well, clearly we'll circle back to that when we chat a little bit about your newest book, Jane Doe Black. But I guess since we talked about a la carte and the Wanderer, what
Hmm.
was do you remember? Because I'm mindful that these two are
Hmm.
older works of yours. Do you remember where the idea for the a la carte series came from?
Yeah, I mean, so for a long time ago, because I don't do this anymore, I remember watching Basketball Wives, and I remember this weird, I don't know, coexistence between the wives and their athlete husbands. And predating Basketball Wives and reality TV and stuff, I had like a friendship with a professional athlete, and he was married. We were only friends, nothing scandalous happened. We were only good friends, and he was kind of like a minor celebrity, even when he was in college. And then he got out of college, he married his high school sweetheart. And while I knew him, he was a serial cheater. He was a serial cheater who was not shy about the fact that he cheated. He was living a different life from his wife, and simultaneously different from Rand in the Coffee Date series, though. Um, Seemed to really value his wife in a strange and sick way. Like he was living two different existences. And so between that, the Basketball Wives franchise, and my friendship with this athlete, I remember thinking, how crazy is that? Like he is so not who he appears to be when you really know him as a friend. I think because we were not romantically involved, it was easy for me to see the man he could be and the man he should have been. And also because I was a friend and not romantically involved with him, I was privy to his infidelities. And I was like, it's like he's two different people. He's this asshole who's cheating on his wife while she stays at home and bears his children. And he's just this really cool guy who I like to hang out with, who's a good guy, who has a great heart. And so I thought about that a lot. And it's a theme that I visited in a couple of books, not just the Coffee Date series, but
Yes.
that's where it first came from. And likewise, when I first got out of law school, I was working around rappers and stuff, and they were kind of the same,
Mm,
you know, with that like existence between fame and their real world, and they were just very different in each of those places. So with Coffee Date, I wanted to, like have do a little bit more exploration about like the psyche of that kind of man, and like
mhm.
what happens when it all tragically goes wrong and he has to face real life, whether he
Yeah.
likes it or not.
Because as I'm sure you heard from our discussion, right? I think HP was the one that said she would unalive a man who was doing all the right things, right? Being the
Mm-hmm.
quote unquote perfect boyfriend, husband while cheating. And it's like, at least if you're doing me wrong and cheating, then I can better reconcile in my
Yeah,
mind.
show some sign.
Yes,
Don't delude
yes,
me. Don't have me thinking that it's sweet, because now I got to show you.
yes,
But
yes,
then you see how difficult it would be to decide to leave that
Oh,
person,
yes,
because
absolutely.
yes,
you're like, wait a minute, like which is the lie?
Yep.
yes.
The outside being a dog, horrible person, right? With no principles, or the person who treats me well and who like I've seen no sign. Maybe it just means he's a sociopath. That's possible, right? But it could also mean that both of those things are true. Both
Yes.
can be true at the same time. And so anyway, but I get it. Like I would want him to like give me some other reason to leave
Yeah.
besides the things that I've actually never seen. It would almost seem like, and it probably also gives you a little bit of insight into those women who we all like deride and talk bad about when, they're dogged by some guy, right?
Hmm.
Hmm.
In the public eye, you're like, he's dogging you. Oh my God, he's cheating on her again. And da, da, da.
Golden handcuffs.
Right. Right.
And then what happens? Maybe
Yeah.
he's like, she's a queen at home,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And usually what happens then is the woman who's a queen in her house, she'll turn on to other women, right? Because
Hmm.
I've
Yes.
never seen none that tells me he's a bad person, so it must be y'all.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
Funny how we that took us down the road, and that when we meet Rand, that is not Rand, right?
Hmm.
That's SJ, right? Who
Right,
was like a side character in book
right.
3, book
I
4,
don't even know.
into
Can't help
book
you.
3, into book 4, and yet that side plot, Nia, was just so, because you didn't, it's not like you gave it a ton of real estate, but you gave
Hmm.
it enough and it resonated powerfully enough that we spent, in light of the fact that SJ and Jennifer were true side characters, we could probably count the number of pages they had, right, on two hands, I think, HP. But that was a fulsome discussion in the context of Rand and Danny's story, the two characters who
Right,
the story is actually about, um,
right.
because that topic is so meaty and so rich. And here we've got Rand, who, right, had been forced to turn over a different leaf. Whether it was new or not
Hmm.
remained to be seen, but it was a different leaf, right? Because things went the way that they went. And just the fact that you chose Danny, right? Danny could have just been, right? It just, the way that whole setup, right? Because she could have just been someone that he knew from high school and not necessarily also a life coach who had recently lost
Right.
a ton of weight and was struggling. Like, you just, I
Right.
mean,
Well, because it's kind of, it's been done for them both to be beautiful, perfect people.
yep,
It's just
fair.
that's been done. It's fun. It's light reading. Um, but even in light reading, which I think Coffee Date definitely is, it doesn't mean you can't have like some little, you know, I don't know, some food for thought in there as well.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
you gave them multiple layers. You gave them
Yeah.
multiple layers, that were not necessarily expected, but were so great and well done, that just made the story richer and richer, and it just kept going and going. HP, you were about to say something?
Oh, yeah, I was gonna, but I wait. I can wait.
I mean, I would just add that, like, I think the key to like good relationship fiction for me is that you want to provoke people's um, greatest wishes. You want to do that, a little bit of that in the book, and you also want to tease and play with their greatest fears. And I think listening to you all talk about Coffee Date in those books, and also The Wanderer to some degree, it was gratifying because I felt like y'all had moments of both of those, right? So the Danny story is your greatest wishes and hopes, right? That the girl who feels underappreciated, never noticed, the wallflower, the one that never gets the good thing, finally gets the good thing, right? So that's good because it,
Yeah.
it plays with people's like greatest hopes and wishes. And then the deepest fears part would be Jennifer and SJ. Oh my God,
Mm,
what
mm,
if I don't know? Could
mhm,
he could like heartbreak show up like this for me too?
mm,
Where I'm busy thinking I'm different and I'm safe from what a lot of other women go through because I am treated well and I'm loved by a good man. And yet, so I think so for me, it's like, you know, your greatest hopes and wishes and your deepest fears. And if you can have a little bit of both in a book, then, then people feel seen.
mm,
Hmm.
mm.
How come Danny was a virgin?
Because I think it's a lot of, there's like a lot of folklore around how sexually active women really are,
True, true, true,
Mhm,
true, true,
mhm,
right?
true.
mhm.
And that I think it's absolutely possible. And
Yes.
I can't say that I know a whole lot of them. The oldest virgin I ever knew was like someone who was 30, and for her it was a choice, right? It was a choice for celibacy before she got married. But I think it's a thing. I think there's so many, and we're in a world where everybody's putting themselves out front. Everybody's
Mhm.
like, look at me, look at me, look at me. I don't for one second believe that all of these women are out there like that. They're
Yeah,
just not. There's some women who have not met the person, who have not been in the situation where they felt comfortable. Or they were one of those people like Danny who, for stupid and superficial reasons, were overlooked by a lot of men.
Mm,
And in this image conscious world we live in now, I bet you
yes.
there are even more of them than we would think.
Yeah.
Yes. And I think there, to your point about the woman that you knew, because when I call to mind women, I think I only knew of one as well who, for similar reasons, was holding out
Hmm.
until marriage. And I remember thinking, oh boy, I hope, I worried
Right.
about the expectations being placed on that. And in different contexts, in different books, HP and I have talked about that.
Hmm.
And obviously it came up again in when we talked about Rand and Danny purity culture and how men
Hmm.
react to that, right?
Right. Yep.
Rand being, like horrified, and we were on different sides of that. But I think you're right. I think you're probably right that there are more women than we think, and the reasons may not necessarily be tied to religious
Religion
regions,
or anything. I
right?
agree. I mean, there are different ways to have agency over your body, and it could be
Yeah,
one way is to say, I'm going to be sexually free. If it feels good, I'm going to do it. But another way is to say that I don't want to do it until I
yeah,
actually feel a connection with someone that makes
yes,
it worthwhile. Like sex for me is not recreational. It's not about church. It's not about any of those things. But yeah, I mean, we come in all types, right? That's the
yeah.
most important thing.
Nia, where do you come out on the on that particular issue, right? Were you in
Hmm.
Rand's camp? Were you because
Oh,
as you know
about the
from listening,
virginity
yeah,
thing
I
when he
agreed
found
with
out.
him
Okay.
that it was kind of like, why would you not tell me you've never done this before and I am your first, right? Like that,
Um,
I was with him in terms of that. I wouldn't want to find out by the blood on the sheets. It's like surprise.
I mean, I actually don't. I I think that's like, why does he need to know though? I mean, I'm actually asking. I mean, it's not a rhetorical question. Like, why does he need to know? Like, she knew that they were not in a relationship. She knew that this would probably amount to very little or nothing, and she made her choice. He loses nothing. It's not like he didn't consent to have sex with her. So, I mean, I just felt like so, and she actually told him why, right? She was like, I don't think, she's like, I have no taboos around sex. I just hadn't met the right person who I wanted to do it with. And here you are. You win.
That's fair. I think when I thought about it, it was less of a, at the coffee place before they leave, right? And go to
Hmm.
go back to
Hmm.
their high school. And she's like, yeah, so by the way, I'm a virgin. I'm not saying that kind of disclosure, which would have been odd, but to me, it's like, because there is a physical, not just the blood, but in the beginning she wasn't enjoying it, right? Because of course
Mm.
he, not knowing, he's going for the usual. And look, you say, well, that speaks to Rand not knowing how to initiate the right amount of foreplay, and I'd probably, there's something to be said there, right? But it is different when you have it the first time. When, as a woman, you don't know what to expect, and there's a certain amount of discomfort involved, and then also the blood. So I, obviously
Hmm.
not being a man, I kind of thought to myself, I might be freaked out as well, because if it's
Hmm.
as much of a nothing burger as she made it seem, then maybe before I see you wincing in pain and look down and see that there's blood on my sheets, you might want to say, hey, I haven't done this before, so just FYI,
I
let's
mean,
take
I
our
think
time.
I understood why he was freaked out
Yeah.
too, right? But I felt like her answer to that was sufficient. Let's just put it that way. Like I
Okay.
could get
Okay. Fair.
why a guy might say, this is not something you conceal, right? Because for nothing, if nothing else, I want it to be good for you. I want it
Yeah.
to be an
Yeah.
experience that you like think back on fondly, if not with true love, at least
Right.
fondly, right?
Right.
So I get that part, but I did feel like her answer was sufficient. I did actually get a couple of reviews, if I remember correctly, that where people were like, "Who does that?" And
And like I said, I didn't think that Danny would go off her rocker, but since she had the pre-existing crush on Rand and so on and so forth, I was not as confident as HP that it was that much of a nothing burger with this man. With another man,
Right.
maybe, but not with
Well, what does he
this
care?
man.
He was like a total like hoe out there before. So
He was reformed. He had been celibate for 2
He was
years.
depressed. I don't know if he
You're
was
right. You're
reformed.
right. You're right. You're right. He wasn't reformed. He was depressed. You're right. Never mind. You're
right. So she had no reason to believe that he would put anyone's sexuality up on a pedestal. In fact, she had reason quite the opposite to
Fair.
believe that it would be no big deal for him, right? But yeah, I mean, I guess I get why a guy would be freaked out and but yeah, but it really isn't about him.
You're
I
right.
hate to
You're
say
right.
that. It's
It's
not
not.
like yeah.
It's not. It's not. HP.
What from any of the stories in that series, anthology or series, what hit the cutting room floor?
Oh wow. A lot of backstory hit the cutting room floor because it's a familiar trope, right? Where he was
Yeah.
popular and
Mm-hmm.
he didn't give her the time of day, or maybe they had a brief romance and he ascended to the heights and forgot her. So it's a common trope, and I had like a lot more in terms of like high school flashback type of stuff about
Interesting.
her
Okay.
remembering what it was like to be in, you know, just outside of his orbit, and her
Mm-hmm.
watching him from the outside, and her being sort of you know, pulled away from that by Trudy, who was her friend in high school too, and like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, you know, like Trudy talking bad about them and making her feel bad about being interested in him and the jocks and the football players and the
Yeah.
popular girls. And then it was almost a whole other short story of like Rand as a young man and
Hmm.
Freya, and you know, that whole that backstory, which you get in, you know, smaller pieces, either
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
because he's thinking it or Freya's thinking it. I'd actually written a lot of that. But sometimes, you know, it's good to write it so you know what, you know, what parts of it you want to use and what parts are unnecessary for the story you want to tell. It's almost
Mm-hmm.
like doing a character sketch a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I didn't need it in the end. And I think all you really need to know is that, you know, and that walkabout in the high school, I think in the
Yeah,
first
that
one,
does it all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
right,
And
accomplish the same thing.
and I have to tell you, just kind of as you were just sharing that, the note that he wrote in the yearbook, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
that told us in that one, eh, Danielle, never lose that winning smile or something like that, right? Love Rand.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
in that one, that's just a couple of lines, but that told us he saw her, he was kind, even though he was popular. They didn't know each other that well, but he took the time to write
Mm-hmm.
a sweet short note in her yearbook. He was like, "Did you sign mine?" Oh, you were probably busy, but they knew what that meant,
What
that
it meant.
likely,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
But that told us all we needed to know in terms of whether or not Rand was an asshole to her, worst case scenario, or she was completely invisible to him, right? Which would
Mm-hmm.
have been more neutral. And it was neither. He knew who she was, and took the time to write that note. And that was all we needed, right?
Mm.
We didn't need that they had 30 conversations and somehow over the years he just didn't remember. Like at the time, he took the time to give her this note and then kept it moving. And so what Danny was holding on to was not a pure fantastical creation, right? It did
Mm-hmm.
have base in her interactions with him, which was positive.
Right. And that's
Which is
exactly why I included it, which is
yeah.
why I like y'all's podcast, because you notice little things like that.
Yes.
Because you know,
Yes.
seriously, that was the kind of thing, like, you know, you, especially when you're writing shorter than you're used to writing, you have to use other devices to get, you know,
Yeah.
the message across. Right. So we needed to know Rand was not an asshole. She
Yeah.
wasn't just fantasizing about the jock who could have been callous and she just wanted him to be a good guy. We
Yeah.
had to have some sense of him being a good guy
Yes.
before he was famous, especially since then we hear an extraordinary amount about how much of a not good guy he
Yeah.
became,
Yeah.
right? So you needed that contrast a little bit, I
Yeah.
think.
We needed to be able to hold on and
Right.
cussing
That's
out
right.
Randall Reese, because it was like,
Right.
if you do not get yourself together, sir, please.
Right. And also,
Thanks.
Danny would have been a sucker and then you
Yes.
wouldn't have
Right.
liked her, right?
Yes.
So you would have been like, oh, this chick, what does she need to see? He was a jerk then. He was a jerk when he's married.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
gonna be a jerk with you. So I think that, that was also to rehabilitate her decision somewhat, right? For
Yeah.
why she would have like had sex with some guy she hadn't seen in 15 or however many years it was.
Mm. Why doesn't he, so his arc is about coming out of the like self-blame and shame and grief, and also though starting to see the world as a not so celebrity,
Hmm.
and kind of taking on ownership of parts of his life that he had happily allowed other people to pick up. Where did you already know that when you started that that would be his arc, or who did you have a stronger hold on from day one?
Hmm. Um, him, definitely on him.
Okay.
As you guys pointed out, again, very astutely, Danny remained pretty much the same. And the books were mostly about how Rand becomes a better man through Danny's gentle presence in his life.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So she cared about her practice as a life coach. That doesn't change throughout the
Mm-hmm.
entire arc of the story until the very end, and she has other priorities, but she still cared about that kind of stuff. She prioritized it when it was important. She taught him that a real reciprocal relationship doesn't involve me turning into something different because I'm with you, or dropping what's important to me just because you have things that are important to you that you think should take precedence. um, she offered sort of a loving, supportive presence with his son, but also reminded him that it's his son, and
Yes.
reminded
Yes.
his sister of the same so that she wouldn't
Yes.
continue to enable him. So definitely, I think I had a stronger hold on Rand and where I wanted him to go. And oftentimes, I don't know what's going to get the character where I want them to go, but and I don't really outline, but what I do know is where I want them to wind up. So I'll know when I start a book where in that person's life you'll meet them, and I'll know where I'll leave them, but I don't always know. Most often, I don't know what will happen between those 2 points.
Okay.
So it's just at the end, Rand's going to be a different man. How that happens, that's just like,
Okay.
jazz. The notes just show up where they show up.
And then Nia, so to that, on the timing of the releases, because I think HP went back and they were, the first three were a month apart, and then there is several months for the final between the books 3 and 4. Was that
Hmm.
deliberate? Did they just keep talking to you? Like, how did that play out?
People wanted to know more, which is
Okay.
like so difficult to say no when
Okay.
people say, "Give me more about these characters." Um, and I could have ended a coffee date, and I intended to end a coffee date, but they were so cute. So the second one was like,
So cute.
Yes.
right, I was like, they're such a
Yes.
cute couple. Let me write more about that. So that came pretty easily. But then once you started to write yourself into that hole,
Yeah.
instead of just like pulling back,
Hmm.
you're gonna find yourself with an accidental series. That's what I call most of my books, accidental series.
So what you're saying is the final story with the whole Eva breaking the foot and
Hmm.
coming and staying, that was to your readers, I'll fix you. Oh, you want more? Okay, I'll fix you. I'll fix you good.
Right. I was like, they cannot possibly, they're married, they got a baby. Can I leave them now?
But you made us suffer before we got there, because as we talked about,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
awkwardness between Rand, Danny, and Eva, Lord, it was jumping off the
Because
page. I
how
was
how
covered
could
in
that
it.
not be
Ooh,
Yeah,
awkward?
that
My
was a lot.
goodness.
so awkward. So
Right?
awkward.
Like, how could
And
that not be awkward?
you created a new category between, and it didn't happen in a la carte, but a la carte had cringe moments too. We created the category in The Wanderer, the things that
Oh, the
made you
cringe.
cringe.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. It was sort of
Ooh,
funny listening to y'all talk about that stuff. Oh my goodness. Every note that I wanted it to hit.
we have to
That's why I
go
listened to
there.
that one twice, because I was like,
Definitely.
oh wow. They made me like this book more than I liked it before.
Yes. Yes.
So before I ask you where it came from, I do want to jump to, because in my reflection, because I did need to get to the bottom of it. Um, I figured out why it was so jarring to read his appreciation for their differences and for their intimacy. And it's because in the romance and women's fiction that I read, which is mostly indie Black,
Hmm.
we describe each other like food.
Hmm.
And everybody is not everybody, but they caramel, they dark chocolate, they toffee, they, it's all like hips, lips, and fingertips. And his description of her just rang so unfamiliar because
Hmm.
it wasn't, even though it was because it was you writing it, it wasn't a
Hmm.
woman describing a woman, because there's a particular way that women appreciate other women.
Right. I
It
know what
was
you mean. Yeah.
very decidedly a man describing a woman,
Hmm.
and a woman in like the kinds of things that,
Speak your mind on.
oh, I'm trying to
Yeah.
talk right. Let me get myself together. So
Hmm.
my history, my background is not to appreciate the appearance of white women. It's just
Hmm.
not. Like, my background is that Black is beautiful. I'm from, Marionberry, Washington, D.C., Chocolate City, Rayful
Yeah.
Edmonds. This is where I'm from. And
Hmm.
so I just didn't have any like personal background of accepting that white women were the standard of beauty, because it was just
Right.
drilled
Yeah.
into me hardcore. Don't believe the hype. Black is beautiful.
Hmm.
And so
Mm.
to have this Black man talking about her like AG said, like her pinkness and the different shades and her hair, because my training is that their hair is all over the place. They smell like nickels.
Oh
I'm sorry. I told
God.
y'all I need
Oh
DEI training.
God.
I did not come from like a white positive background. So
The white positive
I
background.
just
That's
didn't. I just came from like, they
yeah.
here. If we can avoid them, we need to. But
Right. So it was triggering. So
it was triggering, but it was just also, I don't even know if it was triggering as much as it was just so different, because
hmm.
I did not have a dictionary or a lexicon or like a space, a file, like a space in my brain for neutral
Hmm.
or positive experiences of white beauty.
Mm,
And so it was
interesting.
the opposite of everything in my head. And so for this proud Black man, and then it made me run headfirst into some conversation that's happening on TikTok that happens often, which is there are these Black creators who are very focused on like uplifting Black people, like building community, et cetera, et cetera. And then they pan
Yeah.
to the right, and they husband, girlfriend, or best friend is white.
Mm.
And so
Right.
the question is
Mm.
always, well, how Black are you? How
Yes.
Hmm.
into the Black power are you, if the person in your bed all every night make me think of Link and the white girl in I'm gonna get you sucker. But anyway, you want a yoo-hoo? What you say?
Listen,
Ovaltine? Anyway,
listen,
my brain is chaotic. Y'all go with me.
just
But it really, really was like the complete opposite of all the files in my brain around white beauty. And so to have this Black man
Hmm.
who loved his race, who loved his people, himself and his son, to have an appreciation for her, it took me out. And I would have much preferred him just being like,
Yeah.
she's pretty.
Yeah. Yeah.
But he went all the way there, and I said, I got to go. My stomach hurt.
can we
Yeah.
take
I
a
remember
moment
you
and
saying that.
notice how, first of all, you said you were saying we need to get to the Wanderer, but then you jumped right in and we went straight to Melanie's genitalia. I mean, I'm just pointing out
I
that
couldn't
She
hold
did.
it. I've been
that
quiet this
this
whole time.
you clearly needed the therapy session
Yes.
even more than I thought
This
you
is
Well,
what's
did,
been
how,
sitting
well,
in
how
my
can
pocket.
I how can I help you with that? What do you want to know?
So here's my question. Of course, where did the story come from? But
Uh-huh.
like, how did you, is it, because I'm in the mid, I think 30% into commitment. So I have questions
Hmm.
about that if we get to have you back. But
Sure.
how did you walk in his shoes like that? Because
Yes,
that was
yes,
an out of body
yeah,
description.
it was very authentic, very
I mean,
authentic.
well, the way you walk into anybody's shoes, right? Like with imagination. But certainly, I mean, some of it comes from um, friendships I've had with Black men whose partners are white women, and with white women whose partners are Black men, right? And just sort of I think when you write, you kind of like collect data all the time. You're like always listening to people and you're always,
That's so
you don't
true.
even know you're doing it sometimes, but you're like collecting information. You're thinking, that's interesting. And then it just sort of comes out at the right time and place when you're writing a story. I had a friend in college. He had been with his dad stationed in Germany his entire life, right? His formative years. So when he came back to the States for college, which was where I met him, he had a hard time dating Black women. He tried. I'll give him that much. But his formative years had been, and puberty and all of that had been in Germany. So he was attracted to white women primarily. And I remember thinking about that. I'm like, his name was Todd. I was like, Todd, what is going on? Todd just, he wore a Black Power fist, a wooden carved one, or I was like, Todd's trying too hard because he just don't even,
Oh,
Bless his
Todd, child,
heart.
take that
Yeah.
necklace off,
Right.
Todd, and come on
Bless his
here.
heart.
Right. So he's one like piece of data that I would get because I got, and what I noticed about Todd was he didn't just date white women. They were always very blonde and very, very fair, right?
Mm,
And that was just interesting to me. And I was like, I can only conclude that what is most attractive about these women to Todd is how unlike him they are,
mm,
which is probably why Black women get a little bit upset. Because if you are looking for a deeper love, a love that reflects your love of self, and you say you love yourself and you say you love your people, why do you gravitate to people who are most unlike you? I
yeah.
found that to be curious. That was an interesting question. I didn't think he shouldn't date white women if he wanted to, or if that's who he found attractive. But he had a very singular type, right, that he liked. It was almost like a fetish, I thought. I was like, that's
Hmm.
interesting. It's probably about her being fair, about her being blonde, about her being certain things. Maybe that's unfair of me to say, but that was what I thought at the time. And then there was also this, um, and I know a few women like this whose partners are Black. One woman in particular that I'm thinking of, she kind of overcompensates a lot, right? Like she wants to learn everything. She's offended by everything. She is determined to be the best ally there is. Um, and she finds it very hard, with few exceptions, to connect. And I know her as a colleague, not so much as a friend. She doesn't have like a lot of Black female friends, which is always suspect to me because I'm like, you love him, I get that, but do you even think anything about Blackness? Do you care about Blackness? Or you just, is
Mm,
he like a project?
Yep.
Like
right.
what's going on there, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
all of those things. And then so having Brian, who is this, man who thinks a lot about his own race and cares a lot about his own race, find himself in this situation with a white woman. I just wanted to deconstruct that a little bit. Like, how
Hmm.
does that happen?
Hmm.
And from Brian himself, when we hear him thinking about how he wound up married to his wife, I mean, she was othered to him from jump.
Yeah.
Yes.
He
Yes.
he did not view his connection with her as the same as it would have been had his wife been Black.
Right.
He he stood outside of it and he observed it to some degree.
Hmm.
He was like, I'm not like that other brother married to a white woman.
Right.
My wife happens to be white. He's a
Yeah.
dude married to a white woman. Like,
Yeah.
but he'd othered her, right? That was never going to work for Brian,
Right.
right? Like
He's
whether
Mm-hmm.
like,
Blue showed
Negro,
up or not.
please. Right.
Yeah.
Like, stop.
Right. So I wanted to look into that a lot. I mean, like, because and this is going to sound horrible. I don't want to offend any Black men out there, but I definitely feel like they're on a spectrum, right? Where where some of them are like, my wife happens to be white. I'm literally race neutral. I date women of any race. I don't even prefer Black women necessarily. I date who I vibe with. Get it? Understand it? I can accept it. And then I think there are those who date white women because they are white women,
Yeah. Yeah.
because they
Yes.
feel like they're
Yes.
more valuable. They
Absolutely.
themselves feel more valued
Yes.
Right.
to be with a
Yes.
white
They got
partner.
the prize.
And then,
They got the prize.
right, they got the prize. And then,
Yeah.
I think it's on a spectrum. And I was just trying to play a little bit with this idea of like, where does Brian, line up on that spectrum? Is he
Yeah.
like you know, that's what I saw, that's what I grew up with, and I really just don't even know how to relate to Black women. Is he, um, I was going to name someone who's a popular personality, but I won't do it. But, you know, is he a
Mm-hmm.
different kind of guy who like is all about my people, I'm fighting for my people. But when I chose my person, they don't look
Yeah.
like my people.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
yeah, I mean, I get it. And getting inside of his head is like, um, I think just like a mashup of all of those things, like my own thoughts,
Mm-hmm.
my own experience with the Todds of the world, where I'm like, dang, does she know that you were dating her because she's white? Like that is
Right.
not a bargain for her either,
Mm-hmm.
Right.
right? Because do you even really see her?
Yeah.
Well, and I always
So
wonder, the fetish goes both ways, right? Because it's kind of like not so
sure,
much
yeah.
for a prize, but the exoticism of it, right? Like, ooh, is it
And
true?
the
What they,
power and the
yes, what,
power of
yeah,
it. Do you
yeah.
like did you all see that there was a I can't even remember what it was, some social media platform, I can't remember one, where a white woman was doing this sort of analysis of why some white women date quote unquote high value Black men. And it's because their gender is devalued in society, but their race is highly valued. And that's the only time they can have a relationship with a man in which they can be assured of their superior value and power. So if you're a white
Hmm.
woman with a white man, you're just a woman, right?
Your dime a dozen.
Your power and right, your
Right.
power and value does not trump his. But when you date a Black man, you get hypermasculinity, all of the, you
Mm,
know, stuff that goes along with being manly, and they're high value athlete, entertainer, whatever. And you also still have more power in that relationship than he does
yes,
because
yes.
you're a white woman. I don't
Right.
know
Wow.
if that's true, but it's interesting.
It's
So
an interesting. I hope y'all heard me huffing and puffing and sighing over here because I caught on to that conversation and I was like, oh God. But anyway, no, it's like 100%. And all of that desirability politics and
I like
the
that desirability politics. That's what I'm
yeah,
going to say. Yep.
all of that conversation around how we weigh each other in this fabricated system that serves nearly none
Mm-hmm.
of us. But how do we still
Yeah.
eke out a way to come out on top, even if
Yeah.
we're all still at the bottom? um,
Right.
so I have a little bit of a segue is why did you have him? Because I'm gonna tell you what stressed me out forever, and it's another reason why when I see you at behind the pen, I'm gonna try to keep myself together, but I
You
might
might
hug you a
not.
little too tight. Um, when when she finds out that she's not the first one, why did you do that to me individually as a person by myself? Why did you do that to HP?
You know why? Because it was too easy to say that, like, again, like trying to stay away from like familiar tropes, right?
Yeah,
Where it's
Mm,
like
it had
she
never
was
happened
his
before.
one true love and had
right,
always been
right.
Yeah.
his one, and he would have
Yeah.
never cheated on his wife. He would have stayed in that marriage forever. Maybe he would have and been miserable. But she came along and she showed him what true love is. I wanted to stay away from that trope. I wanted to, and I also wanted to like share or show that Brian had struggles with his marriage that were unrelated to her.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
He had
Mm-hmm.
struggles with and he, you know, and that what's her name? Melissa, Melanie.
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 Melanie was right on the money in a way.
Yeah,
He he it didn't sit right with him. And even if he hadn't accepted that within himself, there was a part of him that felt like I'm not getting something I want in this relationship. And I don't know, I can't make myself name it, but I don't think I'm going to get it from her because of who she is.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Like he didn't know in a fully conscious way what it was. Although I think he had one like inner monologue where he said he needed the kind of love she gave him at that
Yes.
time.
yeah. At that time,
Yes.
yeah.
Um,
Yep. Yep.
but yeah,
That's one of my
I
favorite
think she was
parts,
right.
right? That
Yeah,
contrast where he's just like, I could not handle the kind of love that a Black woman was going to give me. And, I was fragile at the time, and Melanie was just what I needed at the time, which is why, and this was one of HP's points, that you take race out of it. And the point remains that not thinking about what it means to be tethered to that person 5 years from now,
Yeah,
10
we
years
can
from now,
marry the
15
wrong
Right.
years,
person at the right
right?
time.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
But also think about the fact that there is an element of like someone, I don't know if someone asked me this or if I asked myself, but but at one point I remember thinking about whether there's an element of trauma bonding that happens between Black men and women,
Oh
right?
yeah,
Where
Yeah.
no
like a
Yeah.
part of
question.
the bond is trauma bonding. And
Mm-hmm.
like
Yeah,
if and so what kind of love do you get out of a trauma bond? You get
right.
struggle love, right? He was
Mm-hmm.
not in a position to struggle. Now, I don't think that every bond between a Black woman and a Black man is like trauma bonding, right? But in its most extreme form, and when you hear from, they will tell you, if black dudes that choose white women sometimes like, man, I don't want to go through all that where she, get on me about this, that, and the third. They're not always just talking about housework or someone who,
Yeah,
will expect them to lift up, to carry their load around the house. They're talking, I think, about that dynamic where Brian was like, Melanie makes it so easy. It's just
yeah.
so
Yes. Yeah.
chill,
And you
you
Mm-hmm.
can't
know.
bullshit a bullshit artist. And
Yeah.
so if if we have similar cultural experiences, there are some get out of jail free cards that aren't in the deck,
Right.
Right.
that
Right.
are in the deck if you are dating a person that doesn't have that experience, because they won't question so many things that a person within your culture will be like, okay, you and everybody else, so let's go. You
Right.
know what I
Right.
Right,
mean?
like going to New York with your college friend who happens to be
Exactly.
female, right?
Yes.
Like,
Exactly.
okay, you're gonna go. Oh my God, that's so cool, honey. I don't know. I'm not going to impose on my husband this stereotype that Black men are dogs. I just won't do it because
Right.
I'm not going to be a part of that oppressive system that
Yes.
stereotypes him. If his
Yes.
wife had been Black, she would be like, okay, where's my ticket?
Right.
Or
Right.
you are not going, right?
Yeah.
Right. Right.
Let me tell you where I want you to drop me off, and then
Right.
y'all can have 68 minutes for lunch. And I'll see you back in front
Right.
of the Chrysler building. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I realize we're making generalizations,
Of
but I
course.
think
Yeah.
they're warranted, right? They're based
Yes.
in fact and experience,
Yes.
not 100% of the time, but I would wager 85%.
For sure. I mean, it's up there. And just one more thing, because I know Adrian has questions about the book too. So about the you're not the first one or you're not the only one. I'm gonna tell
Hmm.
you, it was just so upsetting. And if I was able to, if I was able to pay you back, because I would, because it just made it so dirty. It was just
Right.
such a pretty,
It was dirty.
it was oh, they just had such a, like I said, it felt like they were righting a wrong, but they were writing it the wrong way.
And that is perfectly said. I couldn't say it any better than that.
I was giving them all kind of passes. True love
I almost wrote
wins.
that down. Right. But see, true love, the path to true love doesn't have to be like
Of course.
without its bumps. And I mean, and that's
Yes.
the other thing too, right? Like, and Adrian and I were talking about that a little bit before you came on, the idea that like there's a trope in romance. If you're saying you're writing a romance, you sure as hell, somewhat now more, right, in the indie world, but in the traditional romance world, you're not going to have the guy like cheat on his
Yeah, you got
wife
to play the
before
hits.
he,
Right.
Yeah,
right.
Right.
If you're going to have anything like that happen, his wife should either
she's be a harpy.
be an alcoholic,
Yeah.
have cancer, is, about
And
to
he has
pass
already
away.
exhausted himself taking care of her. Yeah.
He has
Yes.
tried every way he knows how to be faithful, and he had this one slip for which he feels terrible. That's the only
Yes.
way you could have that kind of thing in traditional romance. But I'm not really super interested in that because I just don't even believe those people exist. And I think
Yeah.
there should always be like a redemption arc somewhere in
Hmm.
in stories about people, just any people, whether it's in a romance or not. Like I like a redemption arc, and I think Brian sort of deserved that. He made the best decisions he could at each point in his life with the information and where he was emotionally at that time. Not a bad guy, not a super good guy either, but he made the best decisions he could. Like, you're not like the worst thing you ever did. So,
Yeah.
you know,
And that extends even to him, and to them ending the marriage, and Joshua kind of, that was the baby's name, yeah, being in the balance of that. but it was
Mm-hmm.
still a decision that he needed to make.
Yeah.
And,
Right.
you can get into like staying for the kids versus not, whatever, but he was going to suffocate and he knew that.
Yeah.
And what
Mm-hmm.
kind of, I guess the calculus he made to himself, I imagine, is like, I can stay and be miserable and he can see that. Or I
Right.
can leave and try to live a life and explain myself later. Like we got to see,
Right. But
how
it's
that's
hurt
going to
now
go.
or hurt later. But you
Yes.
all pointed out a moment in that book that I thought was really like you were right on, which again, I was like, what? They were like, where you pointed out that that Blue and Brian's first sexual encounter was not. Usually in a romance, they come together for the first time and it's like there's stars and
Yes.
fireworks and
Angels
oh
are
my God,
singing.
right. It's like we've been doing this all our lives. We fit so perfectly. He
Hmm.
took
Yeah.
me where no one has ever taken me before. And I was like, well, no, because
Right.
you're
Right.
both right. It had to be like said in some way, if not explicitly, implicitly in the story that dang, he told his wife he's going to a conference and he in a hotel with the girl where, he
Yeah.
goes to her house. Like all of that had to be like, because readers are not stupid, right?
Yeah.
There's no way to dress that up.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
that ugly thing they shouldn't have done. And
Right.
so make it ugly. Just tell the truth.
And I think that's the balance that you strike, the more realistic you write. Because
Mm-hmm.
it's one thing if you're writing the billionaire that, his assistant who's harboring a crush, and he, like
Right.
if you lean all the way into the trope, then you can do whatever you want to do. But the more
Mm-hmm.
realistic you write, if you introduce these elements that it's like, now that's not adding up. So you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
if you
Right.
put the reader in the real world, you got to operate in the real world. If you put
Yeah.
them in the
Exactly.
deep in the trope, you can do whatever you want to do.
Right.
Exactly. Like in that scene, the one thing I almost took out was where she could smell the rubber of the condom
Yes,
when they
Mm.
are
Lord.
having sex. And I
Mm.
was like, nothing is worse than that.
Yeah.
Nothing,
Like,
nothing. Because why do
Yeah.
you
nothing takes
notice
you
it?
out of the sensuality, right?
Right.
Exactly,
Right.
of the experience and something like that. So, I wanted to just underscore. Also, you want them to know that you, as the right, it's like writing to me about any other thing that might be upsetting to someone else. Like, you can't be glib and write about rape. You can't be
Yeah,
glib
yeah,
and
yeah,
write
yeah.
about sexual abuse. You can't be glib and write about cancer, bipolar disorder, or anything like that, right? You have
Mm-hmm.
to keep it in the real. And I think, you want to be respectful. Like Melanie is fake, but she fake as in fictional.
Right.
But I had to recognize her humanity too.
For
Don't make
sure.
her
Yes.
a
For sure.
caricature. Don't make her this
Yes.
bitchy white woman. Oh, I'm glad she
Yes.
lost her husband. That might
Yes.
Right.
be fun to read sometimes, or maybe I don't know, but that's not where I wanted to go with that.
Yeah, and we commented on it quite a bit because I think you get into the whole when you make the character a caricature,
Yeah,
I think you lose nuance.
Yeah.
yeah,
Because now I don't have to feel anything about her, which means on the page she almost
yes,
disappears because I
Yes.
know that
yeah,
she doesn't matter. But
Yes.
if you make her a reasonable person that's like, has thoughts and feelings, and you see her trying, and well, what about Colonial Williamsburg? And he like, girl, if you don't sit your ass down, why would I ever? But anyway,
Ah.
she's
I thought that was an
trying.
interesting conversation you guys had too about whether, like, what's her responsibility and what's his responsibility in an interracial relationship where you might not understand everything. Like, has he sworn in front of God and everybody that he's going to spend his life explaining stuff to her?
Yeah,
Or has she sworn in front of God and everybody that she's going to educate herself so he doesn't have to explain? Like, I don't
right.
even know. That was a really like, that's a question that I didn't even think about with the depth that you all tackled it. And I
Mm.
don't even actually know the answer, what I would answer to that.
Hmm.
But, the tendency is to side with the Black person, right? The tendency
Right.
is to say, she knew what she was getting into. She lives in the world. She
Mm-hmm.
knows that, it's difficult for Black men and she better educate herself on how difficult because she has a kid too.
Right.
But I actually don't know, right? He also married her. He lives in the world. He
Mm-hmm.
knows what's going to be in her blind spots more
And
than
y'all
she
got
knows
pregnant.
what's going to be in her.
Right.
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 Like he knows what she doesn't know more than she knows what she doesn't know.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Right.
So there's that, right? So it's
Yep.
sort of like, maybe you do have some responsibility. I think honesty, you said something like It's not like she's his coworker.
Right.
where,
Right.
where
Where it's
he's
like, I'm
like,
not educating you. Kiss my ass.
right,
Or
exactly.
his sister-in-law, right?
Right.
Because that little tidbit was hilarious,
It
Nia,
sure
with his
was.
sister-in-laws being like, listen, she your wife, she ain't my wife. I ain't got to do nothing but be polite, and that's all I'm doing. Now get up out my face. Happy
And he
Thanksgiving.
knew it too, right? Because that's how he got in his feelings, because they were like, I
Yeah, I
did
didn't
not
marry her.
stand up and say I would, love, honor, and obey whatever
That's
with your
right.
wife. But
It's like,
yeah.
if you don't get over yourself, please.
Right. You teach her how to make macaroni and cheese. Stop sitting her in this kitchen. She don't need to sit in here with us. She can set the table. Talk to her. Talk to her.
Well, it's so like, as what happened when we talked about the Wanderer, look at all the time we spent on Brian, and it's like, but there's more. The other character, right?
Blue. Oh.
Bluebell, who you just, you know, uh, you could have made it lopsided, right? You could have. It would have
Hmm.
been a different story if you had, but then you gave us Bluebell, who had her own, like, everybody is complex, right? But Bluebell had her own layers. And I love the fact that, when HP gave what's the name? Pixie Girl. What's the name of the trope?
Oh,
HP. But like,
manic, manic pixie
yes,
dream girl.
but like, that was not exactly Blue, right? and
Hmm.
and just the flightiness and the drop everything and hop on a plane, that wasn't exactly Blue either, right? There were
Hmm.
more nuance to her. There was a lot more shades of gray, and I appreciated that, because there would have been nothing wrong if that had been her, right, Nia? I mean,
Hmm.
like, it's not like that makes her a less desirable character, but I
Right.
appreciated that you took the time, that all was not as it seemed with
Hmm.
Blue on the surface, in terms of that carefree and own nothing because nothing belongs to us, and we belong to the world, and go save the children, and her having to work through her own baggage with her parents, and just all of that, and then also grappling with what was happening between her and Brian, right? Because it would have been
Right.
easy if you had leaned into that trope. It would have been easy for Blue to have taken this very, like, higher level philosophical, no one belongs to anyone, so what are the
Hmm.
confines of marriage but a social construct created by man, blah 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 blah, right? To justify
Exactly.
in her
Yeah.
mind that she was sleeping with another woman's husband. And it said she felt that quite deeply, like, she felt that guilt.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
not an insignificant thing to her that Brian was married, albeit to a white woman. Brian was married, period.
Right. Right.
And grappling with that.
Yeah, I mean, and just like, so for me, always my North Star when I'm writing anything is like, one is like, no perfect people, right? And people are more than they appear. Like,
Mm-hmm.
those are the things that I always sort of like lean on when I'm writing
Mm-hmm.
a character, because I feel like if you ever write someone who comes across as pure villain or pure hero, maybe you need to write some more. you know
Mm.
like, keep going, because they will reveal themselves to you, hopefully, um as you write more about that. Now, it may not wind up in the ultimate book, but I think it's really important to remember that. And like you pointed out, that's what led me to the Mistress trilogy,
Mm.
because uh Keisha was kind of one-dimensional in commitment, I think.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
we only saw, like, it's like, with everything she did and where she wound up, you think things like, why would she do that?
Yeah.
I mean, but the benefit of being a writer is you get to write the ending. And so I can ask, yeah, why would she do that? And then the trilogy becomes about why and how she got to that place.
Hmm. Go ahead, Adrian.
I was gonna say, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but HP will have to read it, and I'll go on that journey with her.
Oh,
Do
you
not
might
be
not even know what
surprised.
she did, right?
I gave her the cliff
You
note
gave
of
her
it,
the
because
synopsis.
my
Okay.
point was, right, you took someone who was a villain, and then gave her her own story, where by the end, right, of mother, I was like, yes, go,
Yeah, I
yes, girl,
mean,
you go. And I just never thought that I think, as much as I had enjoyed your writing up to that point, Nia, I was just
hmm
like, okay, this woman is, she is in a different category, because I did not want to redeem this character, and
hmm
you redeemed her above and beyond. And
Thank you.
I just, so yeah,
Yeah,
we'll
also I
have to
don't,
get
you know,
there.
because I like to write like these, like every book feels to me like a love letter to Black men,
Mm,
but I feel like I don't want to do it at the expense of Black women,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So even when characters do things that seem unforgivable or unwise, I definitely want to give the women their due. But I will admit that for the most part, I keep the men at the forefront, like understanding Black men and understanding like their hearts and their motivations and their all of that stuff is really important to me to do.
Now that you said that, I'm gonna keep that in mind as I reflect on your work, because, huh, yeah, I can see that. I can see that. I don't think I would have thought of it necessarily at the forefront of my mind if you had not said that. But now, as I think on, you know, Brandon, Sean,
Yeah.
Chris, right, on and on, Deuce, on and on and on, Kaleem, who I absolutely love.
Right. They have more fully developed character arcs than the
Yeah,
women, generally
yeah,
speaking, in my books, right? So,
yeah.
and also, you know, when you write for women, I think, and honestly, you might think the same. Women write who read these kinds of books are more interested in understanding men than they are, and would they give the men more grace? They want to understand more about the women, men. They want to know more about the men than they tend to want to know about the women, because we think we know ourselves. We don't always, but we think we do. So I think it's mostly like, you know, folks wanting to understand Black men that brings them to that kind of genre.
HP and I have definitely talked about on many occasions how hard readers can be on Black
The women.
women characters,
Hmm
and the overflowing grace that the men characters will get, for actions that are just like, huh? And HP says, what do you say, HP? What did you say about Jazz? If he has money, a big dick, and whispers Jesus on the weekends, that he can do no
I'm a
wrong.
terrible person. I know. I apologize, everyone. But it's
But you're
true.
not wrong. You're not
Yeah,
wrong.
especially depending on like where you traditional or not, in terms of the publishing method. And this is why I have 11 readers, and I love all 11. I can call them all by name. I have all of their email addresses, because I am much more interested in women. Men are
Mm.
just not, I mean, they here, congratulations, you know what I'm saying, can you go take the trash out? But I am far more interested in the internal world of women, and specifically Black women. um
Uh-huh.
but I think I may do what y'all do and change it up so I can have 12 readers. But
I
it
don't think you need to change it, because I think we might think we know. That's
true.
the other thing. Like we think we know Black women, right? And that's why they probably get under attended to. Um, but no, I think that's interesting. I don't know too many other writers who would say that because I think I write for women, but I don't know that I write women with as much depth as I write men.
Hmm.
Mm, mm,
Like
mm.
I write for, as the
Yeah, yeah,
audience,
yeah.
but yeah, I don't know that I do. I mean, I'm sure, but they tend to be like fully actualized humans who know who they are at the start, middle, and end of my books, except for the Mistress series, which is very different. But
Yeah.
for the most part, they know who they are. And it's the men who need a woman to like form them, which is kind
Who
of
are a
sexist in a
mess.
way, if you think about it.
Right. And yeah, I am like specifically like aware that I am not that. Like I just,
Hmm
I am not into women being a tool of men's development. which is
Mm-hmm.
why in my books the women always have the steeper arc. It's the woman that is
Mm,
developing. It's she's growing, she's learning, she's admitting something to herself, she's coming into her own, and he
mm-hmm.
is irritating, standing there, and sometimes he offers her an orgasm, which is an oversimplification, but
But I think that's valuable, and I think it's actually a really strong insight. Like I didn't think about until you just said that, and because of what Adrian said. But for sure, like my female arcs are like gentle slopes, right? She needs to tweak one or two things. I don't know if that's doing the women an injustice or the men an injustice, but I don't know, it's a sense that like women know themselves more or something,
oh,
which
for
I
sure.
do believe to be
Yeah.
true.
Mm-hmm.
Like that we kind of know ourselves because we're like attuned to introspection, and
Yeah.
Hmm.
guys are kind of like they just don't even know how to identify their feelings a lot of
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
time,
Well, it takes me
right?
back to HP, the point you made, right? Where for Danny's lack of romantic relationship experience,
Yeah. She still had the
she
skills she
had,
needed.
right, she had the relationship skills from friendships and things of that nature that Rand did not, right? And that women, it starts for women as girls in terms of
Mm,
hashing things out in a way that men as boys do not and are not necessarily encouraged to. Um, Boys are not necessarily, they're not encouraged to talk it out. They're encouraged to get past it,
Hmm.
shake hands and move on.
hmm
Whereas girls are encouraged to talk about it and make up.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. That's interesting though. I'm gonna have to see if I can notice that in commitment. I'm deep in it though, so I'm probably gonna finish it this weekend because Monday is DC Emancipation Day, so we want to recognize us being free. So it's a holiday, so I have a 3 day weekend and I can finish commitment. But what ended up on the cutting room floor from The Wanderer?
um, so I wanted to give more, like, you know how we saw Blue go back home and she's dealing with her parents, and through that you realize a little bit more about her, and she's like getting her life in order just as she gets her parents' house in order. And I had like something similar with Brian because I knew that I'd alluded to two siblings, two sisters-in-law, and I was curious about, because this is always a thing, well, full disclosure, one of my brothers is married to a white woman, and it's always a conversation among the other siblings, not the fact of her being white, but how that will make her react to certain circumstances, like things that are intuitive for us, places, experiences, like how is, like, oh, but are we gonna have to do a little translation for so and so? You know
Yeah.
what I mean? That comes up a lot. And I
Mm-hmm.
was curious about how Brian, being the person he was, this racial consciousness and all of that stuff, and given who we know his sisters-in-law to be, what are his brothers like? What do they, so
Mm,
there was a little bit of temptation to like give more, but that's when a novella becomes a novel for me.
mm-hmm.
Because then then you're going farther than you need to go for purposes of like just this, snippet in time, which
Right.
for me is the difference between like a short and a novel. And if I had made it like a novel, I would have gone into that stuff. So that stuff didn't survive. And I was going to have a couple conversations with him and his brother,
Hmm.
and that kind of stuff, but I think it would have led me too far afield when really I needed to be showing just the breakdown of his marriage. Like while Blue is off being by herself and her family and dealing with her stuff, I needed to show Brian dealing with his stuff, which
Mm-hmm.
could have been his family stuff, but his primary thing to deal with was his wife, right?
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
showed her in Chicago with him, and how that or him in Chicago with her and her family, and how that dynamic worked, because I thought that was more relevant to the core storyline. But yeah, lots of stuff winds up on the cutting room floor in general, I think. Like commitment, as you read it, honesty, I'll like apologize. It's way longer than it should be. That's the book where nothing wound up on the cutting room
That's
floor.
what's so
That's what.
surprising
Okay.
to me, though,
Okay.
because you are so, and maybe it's because I've read the first two titles I've read for you are later titles. You are
Mm,
incredibly efficient.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so,
thank
I
you.
understand like that for the first project, it was like you were still getting your legs under you,
Hmm.
but you are a very tight writer.
Yes.
Like
Thank
there
you.
is a lot of precision there. And as a I always want to write 10 words when I probably should write 100. so
Hmm.
so like my favorite, I wrote this short story for a friend called Sloth, and it's
Hmm.
like 3,000 words. But I
Mm.
tried to give you everything you needed in 3,000 words. I wrote a short story from the summer that George Floyd was murdered, and it was a
Hmm.
romance, but it was about a couple coming home from a demonstration. And
I
there's
wrote one
only
like that too.
I was
Did you
about to
really?
say,
Oh, I'm
you all
I
finding
have a
did.
this.
parallel.
It's called Resistance, a
Okay,
love story.
nice.
But
So
anyways, did you
this one is in
publish
a
yours?
collection. Yeah, I published it. It's in a collection of first
Okay.
stories. It's the
Yeah.
first story in that book, but there's only two
Okay.
lines of dialogue, and they both say the same line of dialogue because I wanted to push myself to write something that was more experiential.
Hmm.
And so it's one line of dialogue that they both say at different points of the book, and when they each say it, it has a completely different meaning.
Oh, I have to read that.
Um, so when I read other authors who are really tight, I'm like, yes. But I'm also wondering, like, in your projects that are 350 pages, 400 pages, how
Hmm.
do you, it's hard for me to get there. At about 200, I'm like, that's enough. Now, what else is we gonna do? So, how do you let in your writing process? How do you give your characters more freedom? Because that's something I don't typically do.
Mm. And wind up at 350, you mean, as opposed to
Right,
200?
right.
Well, because so you write relationship fiction, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
So the thing that I just like posted this on someone's Facebook post today. The one thing that I really wish we had more of in relationship fiction is attentiveness to people being in a relationship, not
Hmm.
the falling in love part, not the fight that causes the breakup at 75% that's going to be reconciled by 95% that's going to
Right.
lead to the PGA
Hmm.
at 100%. Like, not that stuff. But I want to believe that these two people like each other, that these
Yeah.
two people want to spend time with each other. And I actually don't think of it as bloat or like extra in a
Hmm.
relationship focused novel. If you have, and it could be like a chapter, it could be that I do, I wouldn't say I outline it, but that I always make sure I have. You
Hmm.
have to see them relating to each other on a level that gets the reader to get it. I can see
Hmm.
why he finds her interesting. I can see why he likes her. And it shouldn't always be a fight or are we going to sleep together or not? Are you going to
Yeah.
break up with your ex-boyfriend or not? Do you love me or not? It's
Yeah.
always really cool to read that part of a novel or a romance novel if it's a really good one, or a literary romance or a women's fiction novel where you see the couple just being with each
Yes.
other in a way that feels
Hmm.
authentic, and you get it. Either he's a funny guy and he's lighthearted and she's really serious, and you get a few scenes of him just like getting her to laugh and he's being goofy and she's trying to be serious, and then you start to think, oh man, yeah, I can see that yin and yang. I can see why she would like him. And in the absence of that, I'm not interested in the book. Like, I really am
Hmm.
not. And so I'll just be like, oh, okay, I get it. He's hot. He's got a great chest. He has a nice car. Like,
But at
but
some point, they're gonna go to the grocery store together, and it's gonna be cute, right?
exactly.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah,
Yes.
and then you know what? Write that grocery store scene, because
yeah.
every scene, every interaction that you have with your partner, if you have one, tells you something about the dynamic of the relationship, including, by the way, the sex scenes, which I write to show the dynamic of the couple, not just to give people like a thrill, but to
Hmm.
show the dynamic of the couple. So have them go to the grocery store. Maybe he's the guy who just puts stuff in the cart and she's like, oh my God, can you slow down? I need to see what's on sale. Like, you
Yeah.
have to see that sort of push and pull so
Yeah.
you get it, right? So you're like, oh, man, I could see why she gets on his nerves sometimes, or why he gets on her nerves, or why she finds him a breath of fresh air. So that's how I think, like, if you write in your first draft, in just in the way I do it, it's different for everybody. But if you write your first draft and you're like, it feels kind of thin, or there needs to be more, I would say that's where it should go. Even if
Yeah.
it's in them having sex, right? Like in one of my books, I have them having sex, but they're joking around, they're having fun. It's not like
Mm-hmm.
just passion and sparks and this and that. And that gives you the sense this is a couple that enjoy each other. They're
Mm-hmm.
funny together, they're relaxed together. And you make a really fun, sexy scene for the readers. But giving it just a little bit more that adds dimension to their relationship, I think, is where you can like pick up. And then you know what? That part is so fun to write. Let me tell
It's
you.
true. Yeah.
That
Can
kind of
I
stuff is so fun to write.
say something? Because Nia, while you were talking, I'm reflecting on your catalog, I'm reflecting on the stories, and you are right that you do that. But what I am realizing is that what you are making sound very maybe you're not intending to make it sound effortless. It sounds effortless though, right? It sounds easy. But I can also call to mind other stories I've read where I think that's what the author may have been trying to do, but it felt stale. It was
Hmm.
boring, right? And so I'm sitting there
Hmm.
and I'm like, this is a lot, and I'm scrolling. I'm scrolling because I'm like, okay, okay. So there is clearly an art to giving a window into the relationship that is not attached to a high or a low, but it's in the
Right.
middle without it
Hmm.
being boring.
Right. Yeah.
Because a trip to the grocery store, if not handled the right way, that's how you have people like look at like why was this scene in here? You could
Hmm.
have just cut this.
Hmm.
Because you didn't necessarily feel like, or it didn't translate that you were getting a window into this couple that you're supposed to be interested in outside of when they are fighting or loving on each
Hmm.
other.
Right. That's
So
fair. That's
so
fair.
there's something to be
Yeah.
said for how you position that, because they
Hmm.
don't, I can call some of those scenes to mind and they never felt like, wow, why is okay, okay, all right, okay, moving along. Let's keep going. But
Right.
I'm just
Yeah.
realizing that that is not as simple as one might think when you think about a relationship. And I've been with my husband a long time, and it's a conversation between us, and you're like, oh, you put that on the page, and it's like, well, that doesn't necessarily translate the same way,
Right.
right? Where people are like,
Right.
oh, I
Yeah.
feel like I
Yeah.
got deeper insight and this was interesting to me,
Right.
versus I watched these two people exchange words and I could not care less.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, and I guess that's the art. That's where I guess your skill and like
Yeah. Yeah.
revision will
Yeah.
come in, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I just find that stuff to be essential. Like you can draw it from your own experience. You can draw it from stories that your girlfriends tell you. Like, oh my gosh, he picked me up and we usually go to a restaurant. We just walked on the pier and he told me about his brother. And like you could hold, yeah, like I said, you could steal entire scenes from people's lives, including
For
your own,
sure, for
Yep.
right?
sure, for sure,
Yep.
and have
And
done so.
transplant it.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
But I think
Exactly.
the day to day, or the view into their actual relationship, to Adrian's point, like it matters more if it is tied to, or yeah, if it's connected to some emotion that's already been established.
Agreed. Or you can establish the
Or you
emotion
can
with that scene.
establish it with the scene. But like to Adrian's point, if it's like words for words sake,
Mm-hmm.
but and it becomes more like either more exposition or conversations with people who are not really related to the situation at all,
Mm-hmm.
then it's kind of like, well, why are we here? Versus this is more about people that I'm learning and starting to fall in love with as a couple, or I've got
Mm-hmm.
questions and this gives me more insight, which yeah, I think is a different thing.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I mean, like some of the books on craft will tell you things like, so the places where I cut because they're useless for the reasons that you guys are describing are if you, for instance, I'll use myself as an example. Like if I have someone walk in the door and they say to their spouse who's waiting on the couch, "Hey, what's up?" And she says, "Hey." And he says, "How was your day?" And she says, "It was fine. How was yours?" If there's not some underlying tension
Yeah.
or some underlying some subtext to that, that
Yes.
has to go. It
Right.
Yes.
can't just be a scene transition. So
Yes.
everything has to have meaning, right? And commitment is a great example. And you'll see lots of mistakes in like delivery in that. But there are a lot of encounters that made it longer, but I had a hard time cutting. Like one I can think of is Sean and Riley are in, I think, a Chinese restaurant or something, or they're in like Flushing or somewhere, and some Asian kids who are wearing Wu-Tang shirts who pretty likely know who he is start looking in his direction, and he doesn't want to be there because he's afraid they'll come over to the table. And she starts talking to him about, how rap kind of sold out, and they have this argument. And in the meantime, he's also focused on this waiter who's looking at her, and he's kind of, that could have been a scene that very well could have, and maybe even should have, wound up on the cutting room floor. But it was also about the tension they had around him being a celebrity,
Hmm.
his discomfort with being a celebrity
Hmm.
sometimes, her not, him suspecting that she didn't really understand his art form or respect it. So, and this broader context in which they're having this relationship where they're all, the external pressure of being recognized and being famous and trying to vibe with your woman and worrying about your relationship. So I didn't leave it on the cutting room floor for that reason. I could have I think I showed that in other places, so it probably could have gone. But, even that little moment that might have been like, well, why did we have to see them go to get Chinese food before they went to the party? Like,
Hmm.
what does that add? But that's what it's intended to add, is that,
Hmm.
tension between who he is trying to exist in the real world and all of that stuff. But I think if you can't see the purpose for the scene as a reader, not even always as a writer, then maybe it should go.
Yeah.
Plain and simple. It should go.
Yeah, that's a good point. AG, do you have any final questions or thoughts?
Well, in fairness, since we spent, our time with Nia on two of her OGs, but you've moved not totally, right? Not to say that you'll never go back to some of the stuff that you used to write, but I know, Nia, from being in your Facebook group, that you had expressed last year that you had a desire to do some different things and to move in some different spaces. And then earlier this year you released Jane Doe Black, which is, we have not read it yet, but we certainly will. Is it mystery thriller? Right, there's a legal thriller piece to it, but how would you
Mm-hmm.
describe it?
All of those things you just said.
Okay. Okay, good.
Right. So quick setup is an ADA in Manhattan has her little sister at UPenn. She comes to visit her. She's really busy with trial. She's been kind of a neglectful older sister for a long time. Her sister gets back on the train to head back to school at UPenn, never arrives. And when you start the book, you see the sister go off, and the real story picks up when it's a year later. The ADA's life has fallen apart because her sister is still missing, and she did not get the level of attention for her sister's case that she assumed she would get because she's a part of the law enforcement community. But she and her sister are Black, so they la vie.
Mm,
That's how it
yeah.
goes. So it's just basically figuring out what happened to her sister and her sort of clawing her way back from like a self-destructive spiral that she went into after her sister went missing. So
Okay.
that's the setup for that book. And it does have like some elements of what it's like to be a prosecutor, and and the underlying theme for this book and also for the ones that will follow it are about how if you're Black, you are not ever able to be a true insider in the criminal justice system. It treats you
Mm,
differently,
mm,
insider, outsider, whatever. So that's like the overarching theme. But this story is about, women who are Black and missing.
mm. And when is the next book coming?
The next book, the target is that it should be out right before Behind the Pen,
Okay.
so that I can have it available for folks then by the time I go to that event. And then the third, I hope to have by the end of the year, and hopefully that series will be done and dusted.
Okay. 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 So there's time to well
Well, whenever
there's
y'all get around to it, I know for sure, like a lot of folks find the subject matter difficult, right? And also there's some folks who just read romance and prefer it that way because life is hard enough.
yep, yep, yep.
Understood, right? So
But
there's
but
that.
let
But
but let me
yeah,
ask you
so I
this,
won't
like
exert any pressure for you to
what
read it.
what prompted you, though I've read your entire catalog. I'm not stopping now. Just may take me longer. But like what prompted you to pick this in particular? This because I remember your Facebook message and you just said you wanted different things. You wanted to do something different, but I don't believe you went into specifics and said "You this way or that way.
Hmm. I
What
mean,
made you pick this?
well, I mean, for one thing, like the crime podcasts who definitely played a role. But
That's right.
beyond
Yep.
that, it's
Okay.
just, yeah, and beyond that, it's just, I like to like learn new things when I write. I like to learn how to do different things craft wise and figure out how to stretch and grow. And when I what I was writing in the romance slash women's fiction or realistic romance space started to feel stale to me a little bit. I was like, yeah, I need to do something different. I
Okay.
don't feel the same, level of enthusiasm writing that. And then
Mm-hmm.
my last book that was supposed to be in that space, The Broken, went really dark, right? And it
Mm-hmm.
went kind of dark and the tone was different. And I was like, it's because I'm different. I just want to write different things. So we'll see how that goes.
You were becoming dark. We won't do a Harry Potter reference. You weren't
Hey,
going from Tom Riddle to Voldemort, but you were going dark.
listen, we lived through some dark times, didn't we, over the last
Yes,
couple of
yes.
Yes,
No,
years?
indeed.
indeed.
So I totally understand.
Indeed.
Which is why
Indeed.
you had to write that short story about a
Oh,
couple
had to.
right? Because it's what's in your head. It was just not possible to like avoid that, I don't think. So
No,
I
and
think,
I tried.
I bet you did, right? But what was on TV? And we were
Yep,
all locked in our homes. There's somebody crazy in the White House. Like there was all kinds of stuff going on that
too
made it
much
Yes,
hard to,
yes.
lean into the brightness of love and
for sure.
all of that stuff. So yeah.
So you mentioned Behind the Pen. We'll just remind people that is Saturday, August 12th. It's happening in New York. That's hosted by Sister Girl Book Club. Sister
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
I think tickets are still available for folks who
I
are in the New
believe
York
so.
area, but we will definitely be there. Hopefully, we will not be escorted out by security because HP cannot exercise self-control. We will do
Listen,
our best.
they
No
have a
promises.
great lineup. They have a great lineup of really exciting writers and
They really
you
do. They
know,
really do.
Yeah, I'm
We're
excited to
yeah,
go.
excited by the folks that are
yeah,
going to be
yeah.
there.
And it's
Now, are
always a
you?
really good event.
And this will be both of our first time.
Yep.
So again, hopefully it won't be
Oh, you'll
first
love
and
it.
last because we get banned for misbehaving. Um, are
Again,
you
no
planning?
promises.
Lady, let's not make an admission that then gets used against you at a later date. Are you planning on being anywhere else in 2023 where readers can catch you in person, or is Behind the Pen the only thing on deck right now?
I might go to the Writers Digest conference also in New York, I believe.
Okay,
I may do that. It's in August as well.
okay.
But yeah, I'm trying to like explore other genres. So I'm going to go to other conferences where I can learn a little bit more about that craft. I've never really queried or tried to get a publisher before. I might do that this year, might put
Okay.
out some more shorts and stuff like that. So, in that exploration phase of writing, and we'll see how that goes.
Okay.
That sounds really exciting. And I think it's awesome to let yourself do that because I think there is like almost like Brian's experience. Like there is a tightness
Yeah.
and a closeness in the Black indie space, and it's like anything you do that's not this is betrayal. And
Mm,
but for you to say, I love y'all, I'm still here, my catalog is not going anywhere. When I get the notion, I'll still be in this space, but maybe in a different way. But I'm also interested in different things. Is something that's great to model because not everybody feels like that's an option.
Mm,
yeah,
Especially
yeah.
if their base is Black indie romance.
mm.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I can definitely, I can definitely feel that there are some people who, for good reasons, I think they just don't want to read this genre, and that's fine. I mean, there, lots of readers, and like you said, I'm gonna continue writing. I have a couple of shorts that I'm working on right now. I might get one or two out before the end of the year. But yeah, write what you feel, I think is
Mm-hmm.
what you got to do in all cases, and the readers will come.
Yep, 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 yep.
Am I lastly fair to assume that we won't get any drop-in updates on the Reese family because you left them in such a great place? Fair.
Probably not. I mean,
Okay.
it's so tempting to do that, but that kind of, you could like spend, like, I've seen people who have like series that are like 7, 8, 9 books long, and I'm like, wow, man. I used to think that was crazy, but now I can see how it happens. And
Yeah.
I'm trying very deliberately not to get pulled under. And also, it's kind of easy sometimes, right? Like if you're trying to like grow as a writer, to continue to write about characters inside and out is not, for me at least, stretching in the way that I want to stretch. So, I might have a few duds and misfires and whatnot over the next couple of years, but I think I'm ready for that. I'll be good. It'll be good.
That's fair. That's fair. And I mean, look, the way the way that you ended The Wanderer, it was kind of like, we may wander, but we'll wander together. So who knows where Brian and
Oh,
Bluebell are now? They might be living in India, making their art and doing video calls with Josh and planning on having their own baby or something. But you kind of position them where, whatever they were going to do, they were going to do it together.
yeah. For my money, they're in Paris. He is the new Ta-Nehisi Coates, and so they moved over there, and like many Black writers before them, that was like, this is a little too warm over here in the States, so we're gonna go where it's a little cooler.
Right.
We can
So we
live and
can
go
go
to the grocery
somewhere where we
store.
can free our minds and not be.
Exactly, and not be
I see
harassed
the
and
appeal. I definitely see the appeal because that's why
Hilarious.
we wound up writing about civil unrest, right?
yep,
Because we couldn't get our head out of the spot we were in.
yes,
But
for
yeah.
sure.
I love that.
Thank you
But
so so
thank
so much for
you.
coming.
Yes, such a pleasure. Such a
Thank you for
pleasure
having me.
to spend some time in your head after being in these characters' heads, Nia, and just hearing your thought process behind what you gave us, which were just two wonderful masterpieces. And now that HP is diving into commitment, dare I say, we may find
I hope
ourselves
she
back in your
finds her
inbox.
way out because that is a long book.
Well, don't be surprised if you get a lunch or dinner invite because we're on the same coast, and I think we're all within like
Oh,
3 or 4 hours of each other.
Yes.
So
yeah,
we may
yeah.
meet some at the
No,
Delaware House or
I would
something.
love it. I would love it. We
A
used to
private
do that.
therapy session off the
Yeah.
record.
Yes.
No, that would be so cool. You guys have really amazing insights. I sent like a whole bunch of like people who know that I write, but I don't really talk about it with them all the time. I sent them the podcast for The Wanderer, and I was like, "See, I told you I was a badass. These
I
women
love
said
it.
so." I
Yes,
was like, I did not pay them. I did not ask them to
you
review my
did
book.
not. You
I
did
love
They
it.
not.
came up with this on their own.
That's
No, but
right.
those were really gratifying to read, and you actually made me go back and like read the portions that y'all were talking about, which is always fun to do. Some of it I forgot until you mentioned it.
Yeah.
So that was fun, and I'm gonna recommend this podcast to every writer who wants someone to like truly go deep with their work, because you guys are the best at it that I've heard. So
Thank
thank you.
you.
Thank you.
Wow,
Well,
that is
it was
high
an accident,
praise.
but I'm glad it's working
Yeah.
out.
I
Yes.
know it was a happy accident.
It was. It was. It was.
Yes.
Okay. Well, you ladies
All
have a
right,
wonderful
thank
evening.
you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you again,
Thank
Nia.
you.
Bye
Have a
Bye.
bye.
good night. Bye.